Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Sakura time traveled back and changed everything with Naruto and Hinata? Episode 1. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, after witnessing a future filled with war, loss, and heartbreak, Sakura is given one final chance to travel back in time. This time, she's determined to protect both Naruto and Hinata, and create a future where no one is left behind. Now, let's start. The Kyuubi no Kitsune, nine-tailed demon fox, a force of nature said to be able to create tsunamis and cause earthquakes with a single swipe of its tails. A creature that had just been torn from the seal holding it within Uzumaki Kushina, a seal that was weakened when she gave birth to a beautiful golden-haired baby boy. A creature that had been released in a state where it was being controlled by a masked man who had kidnapped the boy to force the Yondaime Hokage, 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato, away from where his wife had just given birth. After saving his son from the explosive tags covering Naruto's wrappings using his Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, to get him to safety, Minato used the Hiraishin marker integrated into the seal that was being used to reinforce the weakened Jinchuriki seal to teleport himself to Kushina in time to save her from the freed Kyuubi. As Minato took Kushina to their son, the masked man used a teleportation technique to move just outside of Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves, and summon the Kyuubi and force it to attack in the hopes of destroying Konoha. With Minato. After using a time-space barrier to transport Kyuubi's Amari, menacing ball, away from Konoha, he was forced to fight the masked man and the strange jutsu he used to make himself insubstantial and things into a void. After engaging in a battle of speed, he realized that the masked man's jutsu kept him insubstantial until the second just before he attacked. Using one of his Hiraishin kunai thrown just ahead of him so that it went through the masked man's head just before he started to attack, Minato formed a Rasengan spiraling sphere, and teleported himself to the kunai before slamming the Rasengan into the masked man's head. Lifting the masked man up, Minato began to use his skills in Fuinjutsu to free Kyuubi from the man's control. A Keiyaku Fuin contract seal, are you trying to break my contract with the Kyuubi? The masked man exclaimed. Now the Kyuubi will no longer be yours to control. Minato replied calmly. No wonder you are the Yondaime Hokage. I'm impressed. You were able to wrest control of the Kyuubi from me, but no matter. I will have the Kyuubi in my power once again. This world is mine, there are many means available to me. The masked man said as he was into a vortex coming from his only visible eye. I get the feeling that he wasn't lying, Minato thought before using his Hiraishin to return to the top of the Hokage monument. Arriving back on top of the Hokage monument, Minato could see the Kyuubi a short distance outside the village slowly advancing against the resistance of the shinobi under his command. Using his Hiraishin again, he quickly returned to where his family was resting to prepare a jutsu that could save the village, at the cost of his life. Seeing Kushina still awake, Minato quickly started speaking. Kushina, the Kyuubi is still attacking. I'm afraid there is only one thing I can do, seal it away. But where will you seal it? Kushina asked. Naruto, Minato replied sadly. How could I ask someone else something I wouldn't be willing to do myself? No. Kushina shouted. Take me, I will seal it back into myself then commit suicide. That will at least disperse it for a time. While that might work, we have to think about the future. That man will return. By sealing the Kyuubi into Naruto we will give him the power he will need to fight back against him. But what will happen to Naruto when the village finds out he has the Kyuubi sealed within him? You have to realize that it will get out, especially if you plan to use the Shiki Fujin dead demon consuming seal. Neither of us will be around to protect him, Kushina asked quietly, seeing her husband's point, but not liking it. Minato paused thinking, she's right, with the destruction that the Kyuubi is causing, There is no way someone won't leak this out. But what if I use that time-release storage seal to give him what he will need to learn to survive? No, that won't be enough. Gamma Bunta, limit sensory-based gravity seal. No, still not enough, but then what? If only we could be there to help him, that's it. Forming a cross-shaped hand seal with the index and middle fingers of both hands, 3 Cage Bunshin shadow clones appeared. One of you will get the supplies we will need from the house, beginner books and up, all of them that he might need. The second start on the time-release storage seal on his right hand, 3-month intervals set to start 1 week less than a year after the activation of the summoning seal. Give it a hand seal combination for the more advanced stuff. Make sure it is reusable once it is emptied, and place a limit sensory gravity seal on his left shoulder. And finally, the third starts preparing the summoning seal while I summon Bunta, he said before turning to Kushina as one of the clones disappeared in a yellow flash. Kushina, can you still make a Cage Bunshin shadow clone? Minato asked. Yes, Kushina answered with a very confused look. Good, create one. I will seal it along with one of mine into Naruto's mindscape with a Hake Fuin 8-symbol seal. They will be in stasis, at least until he can generate enough chakra to maintain the Cage Bunshin himself, then a mind summoning seal will activate, drawing him to the part of the mindscape where we will be. Unfortunately, even with Kyuubi's presence bolstering his reserves, that probably won't be until he is 4 or 5. So to make sure he will be safe and hopefully happy until then, I will need Bunta's help. He said before the third clone tapped his shoulder. Boss, the summoning seal is ready, we just need some blood from Bunta to finish it. The clone said. Good. Start working on the modifications of the Hake Fuin and the chakra sensor activation seal. Make sure Kushina's clone is activated first, he will need a mother before a father. Also, make sure it is a one-time thing that activates when he goes to sleep. We don't want him to lose consciousness in the middle of the day or something. And make sure that it can store up to 2 days of chakra in case he ever gets chakra exhaustion, and a preservation function so our clones can't be destroyed by something simple like getting hugged too tight or if we train him. I'll be right back as soon as I get Naruto to sign the contract and get Bunta's blood. Minato ordered before turning back to Kushina once again. With this, once he has enough chakra to maintain your clone, he will be drawn into his mindscape and meet you. This will have the added benefit of draining him to a point so his chakra reserves grow. That, okay, let's do it, Kushina replied. Moving back to Naruto, he addressed his clones. Can you guys pause for a second? Receiving a nod from both clones, Minato picks up Naruto and leaves the house to summon Gamabunta. Biting his thumb, he makes a series of hand seals and slams his palm on the ground, shouting, Kuchio's no jutsu summoning technique. A giant dull red toad comparable in size to the Kyuubi, wearing a navy blue vest and carrying a dosu blade at his back, appeared right below him, lifting him high into the air. Gamabunta-sama, I'm going to need your help. Minato said to the giant toad. Kyuubi, huh? The toad muttered as he looked into the distance. Anyways, how many times have I told you just to call me Gamabunta? So what's the plan? I'm going to seal it away from my son. Minato said sadly. What? Gamabunta bellowed. You heard me, I'm going to seal it for my son. It will cost me my life, and Kushina is already dying after the Kyuubi was ripped from her. I'm afraid that he will be in danger and friendless because word that he is the new container will most likely get out. Could you help me out? He begged. Sure, make him sign the contract. My son Gamakichi is about the right age, Gamabunta said before another toad appeared, carrying a large scroll. Minato took the scroll from Gama, the keeper of the summoning contract, and opened it up before cutting Naruto's right thumb and using it to sign Namikaze Naruto in the first free column, and then leaving a handprint in blood at the bottom of the scroll. Then wrapping the cut up, he handed the scroll back to Gama and said, Thank you, Gama. You can take the scroll back now, before turning back to Gamabunta. Gamabunta, I'm making a seal that will automatically summon a toad on his 3rd birthday, but I need some of your blood to make the summoning tattoo. Is that okay? Sure kid, I'll even waive the chakra fee until he turns 6. How does that sound? Thank you very much, Gamabunta. Holding up his right hand, Gamabunta replied, no problem, take some blood. Minato complies. Taking out one of his Hiraishin kunai, he makes a small cut and lets some of Gamabunta's blood drip into an ink bottle, before jumping off of his head and running back into the house to place Naruto back in Kushina's arms, then giving the ink bottle to the clone making the summoning seal. Seeing the 3rd clone back, he said, do you have everything? Yes boss, one of the clones replied. Good. Start on the time release storage seal on his right hand. Remember 3-month intervals after he turns 4. The 2nd clone, finish the summon seal and then finish the modified Hake Fuin and seal whichever of you hasn't used any chakra and Kushina's clone and get it ready to sealing the yang portion of Kyuubi's chakra. Be very careful with the filter and healing portions. Whoever finishes first take 2 soldier pills and dispel so I can recover some chakra. I'm going to need it, Minato ordered. Yes boss, all 3 clones said as the original turned back to Kushina. Kushina, get your cage bunshin ready, I'll be right back with the Kyuubi, Minato said gently as he turned back to Gamabunta. Getting back on Gamabunta's head, the pair rushed toward where they could see the Kyuubi in the distance. Just as they neared the battlefield, they saw the Kyuubi start to charge another Amari. Hurry up Gamabunta, we don't have much time. I'm on it kid. Gamabunta replied as he dashed forward and tackled the Kyuubi, preventing the attack from being completed. Stall him for just a minute while I prepare, it is going to take a lot of chakra to transport something this size. No problem, but don't waste any time, this guy is Tug. Ah! Gamabunta let out a roar as one of the Kyuubi's tails left a huge gash over his left eye. Gamabunta, are you okay? Yeah. Good. Here I go, Minato shouted, and with that both he and the Kyuubi disappeared. Outside the house, with Kushina and Naruto. Appearing outside the house where he left Kushina and Naruto, Minato fell to one knee. Shit, that stunt used almost all of my chakra, I have to get a barrier up. As he thought that the Kyuubi turned and started moving toward him, only to be stopped as chains appeared out of nowhere and pinned it to the ground. Thank Kami you are still alive, is everything ready, including the precautionary measures? Minato asked, turning to Kushina only to see her leaning on the side of the building with Naruto in her arms and blood pouring from her mouth. Yes boss, the remaining clones reply before dispelling. Well then, before I start, just know that I love you and Naruto more than my life itself and goodbye, Minato said to Kushina before picking Naruto up and turning back to the Kyuubi and starting to make hand seals. I love you too, Kushina whispered back. Back at the battlefield with Sarutobi Hiruzen. As soon as the Kyuubi disappeared along with Minato, Hiruzen turned toward where he could still feel the Kyuubi's presence. Seeing it in the distance, Hiruzen took off, running as fast as his old body could move. As he crested the top of the Hokage monument a few seconds later, he saw the Kyuubi pulled to the ground. Drawing nearer, he saw chains holding the Kyuubi and whispered to himself, Kushina, before redoubling his speed once again. Coming within sight of Kushina and Minato, he saw a spectral figure behind his successor, and the Kyuubi managed to lift one paw and strike at a baby lying on the ground. Realizing what was going to happen, he started running again, knowing he wouldn't be able to arrive in time to make a difference. With Minato, Kushina, and Naruto making the 9 hand seals necessary to activate the Shiki Fujin and call the Shinigami to rip out the Kyuubi's soul, a spectral figure appeared behind Minato. Mentally directing the Shinigami to separate the yin and yang portions of the Kyuubi, seeing how the Kyuubi possesses too much chakra to seal it all, a spectral hand reaches through him, causing him soul-deep, nearly unbearable pain. The hand stretches toward the Kyuubi, who redouble its struggle to escape upon seeing the figure. Just as the Shinigami grabs the Kyuubi's soul, it manages to free one paw and strike at what has the symbols that signify it was slated to be the Kyuubi's new jailer. Seeing the danger, both Kushina and Minato rushed forward, interposing themselves between the Kyuubi and Naruto, stopping the paw and giving Minato enough time to finish drawing out its soul and the Shinigami to split it, the yin dark half to with him into the Shinigami's stomach and the yang light half to be sealed into Naruto. Summoning Gamatora, a rare scroll toad, Minato shouted, Fuin, placing the key to the Shiki Fujin, and the sealing was complete. Minato collapsed to the ground, still holding Naruto with the 3 whisker marks he was born with on each cheek. Seeing movement out of the corner of his eye, he wills himself to stay alive just a little longer. As Sarutobi moved closer, he breathed a sigh of relief knowing it was someone he could trust. Sarutobi, sorry you, cough, will have to take the hat again. Take him, cough cough, Uzumaki Naruto, he is a, cough, hero. Cough cough, beware, cough, masked man, cough cough, sealing. And with those last words to someone he trusts, Minato died, leaving Hiruzen holding a crying Naruto, the Shiki Fujin still glowing red on his stomach. One dying and the other preoccupied with baby Naruto, neither of them noticed a shinobi standing in the nearby trees. 2 days later, council chamber. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the professor, and the former and reinstated Sandaime Hokage, third Hokage, sat in his chair at the head of the council table with a golden-haired baby in a crib next to him, wishing he could just kill the civilian council and stop the headache they were causing. Kill it. It is just a monster, screeched one of the newer members of the civilian council, one Haruno Sake. Silence, shouted Hiruzen, adding a moderate amount of killing intent to make sure everyone shut up. This child is not a monster, he is a hero who the Yondaime chose to carry a very heavy burden, and his name is Uzumaki Naruto. Yeah right, spat another member of the civilian council, a fat merchant this time. It must be killed, shouted several others, the shinobi half of the council and the elders looking at the civilians with disgust. I thought I said silence, Sandaime said, increasing his killing count. Then how about you give him to me? I will mold him into a weapon for one of the elders, a crippled man with his right arm in a sling, his right side of his face and eye covered by bandages, and a X-shaped scar on his chin. You will do no such thing, Danzo. In fact, if you even suggest it one more time, I don't care how important you are or how highly placed, I will kill you myself. If I even hear about you or one of your men coming in contact with him, you shall suffer the same fate. Do I make myself clear? Backed into a corner but cursing the Sandaime in his head, the scarred man could only answer, Crystal Hiruzen. You will address me as Hokage-sama, is that understood? The Hokage rebuffed, raising his killing intent even higher, seeing something in Danzo that set him on edge. Yes, Hokage-sama, Danzo replied, now intimidated. I still say we should kill it, shouted one of the stupider civilian councilors. Hiruzen turned to the civilian council and raised his killing intent once again, causing several of them to lose consciousness. The Uchiha clan will take him in, stated Uchiha Fugaku in a nearly emotionless voice, though the greedy glint in his eyes set Hiruzen on edge. No, I cannot allow any of the clans to take him in, as it will destroy the power balance in Konoha. No, as much as I would like to take him in, that includes even my clan, he will have to be placed in an orphanage. And seeing as word has somehow gotten out about his burden, as of this moment it is illegal on threat of death to even speak about this matter to anyone who doesn't already know, with the exception of myself, Jiraiya, and Naruto himself. As of this second, his status as a Jinchuriki is an S-class secret, am I understood? The Hokage declared with iron in his voice. Yes, Hokage-sama, everyone in the council chamber answered. Also, if I hear of anyone causing harm to Naruto, it will be even worse. Death will still be the penalty, but it will be a long time coming at the hands of T and I, is that clear? Yes, Hokage-sama, Everyone in the council chamber answered again, this time honestly scared. Now on to more pressing matters. Shikaku, how are our defenses? Hiruzen asked Nara Shikaku, the Junin commander of Konoha. Lifting up his head, the Junin answered, for the moment, they are surprisingly good considering how much damage we took. I have as many people as can be spared shoring up the defenses and the parts which can be easily fixed or being repaired as we speak. Thankfully it will take time for any spies to get word to their respective countries, so by the time any offensive action could occur we will be in much better condition. Thus it is unlikely that we will have to worry about any further attacks at the moment. Then returned his head to the table. Good. Hiyashi, how did your clan fare? Relatively well, Hokage-sama. We did suffer several losses and several members went blind due to the intensity of the chakra, but we will recover. Hyuga Hiyashi, the head of the Hyuga clan, answered. I'm glad to hear that. How about you, Fugaku? Hiruzen continued. The attack was a mixed blessing, I'm afraid. We suffered a good number of losses, but the sheer amount of killing intent caused more members of my clan to awaken their Sharingan than at any other time in recorded history, Uchiha Fugaku reported. How about your clans Sume, Inoichi, Shikaku, Shuza, Shibi? The Inazuka clan took moderate losses. Sume replied promptly. The Yamanaka clan took some losses but less than others due to the focus generally placed on our clan's mind jutsu. Yamanaka Inoichi answered succinctly. The Nara clan is in a position similar to the Yamanaka due to the ineffectiveness of our shadow jutsu on a being of the Kyuubi's strength, Shikaku replied lazily, not even lifting his head off of the table. The Akamichi clan took slightly more severe losses due to the usefulness of our clan jutsu on the front lines. Shuza said. We suffered moderate casualties trying to siphon the Kyuubi's chakra and trying to weaken it, but like the Nara and Yamanaka clans, we of the Aburame clan found our techniques to be ineffective and managed to avoid more serious damages, Shibi answered in a monotone voice. Good. I'm glad to hear that casualties were not as bad as I feared. I'm afraid that I will have to call an end to the council for today. There are other pressing issues I must attend to. Counselors in charge of defense, infrastructure, commerce, utilities, and those representing the city structures. I expect damage reports, expected repair costs, expected repair time, issues, injury and death toll reports on my desk by tomorrow morning, Hiruzen said as he stood and picked up Naruto, then left the council chambers. The Hokage's office. Finally making it to his office, Hiruzen placed Naruto in another crib and sat tiredly in his chair before rubbing his eyes and muttering to himself. I'm too old for this shit. Leaning back in his chair for a moment, Hiruzen thought about what to do with Naruto before suddenly sitting up in his chair and calling out to what appeared to be thin air. Inu. A young man with a dog-marked mask appeared in front of the Hokage and bowed. He appeared to be around 15 years old, though you couldn't be sure due to the mask, and had gravity-defying silver hair. The mask signified that he was part of Anbu, some of the most skilled shinobi in the village. After the young Anbu straightened up, the old Hokage signaled the rest of his Anbu guards to leave the room and activated the privacy seals in the room to ensure their conversation would not be overheard. Kakashi, you can remove your mask for a moment, Hiruzen said. Yes sir, Kakashi replied and took off his dog mask, revealing a face covered by a cloth mask that covered his face until just below his eyes, but strangely his left eye was covered with his leaf Hitai-8. Please take a look in the crib and tell me what you think, Hiruzen commanded. Kakashi moved over to the crib and examined Naruto for a minute before turning back to the Hokage and looking at him with a questioning expression in his one visible eye. Is this? He said, stumbling over his words. The container for the Kyuubi? Yes, Hiruzen said with a patient expression. No sir, is he sensei's son? He finally finished his question after several pauses. Hiruzen glances at him sharply, studying him intently before speaking again. What would you do if he was my boy? Hokage-sama. What do you mean? I would protect him even if it cost me my life, Kakashi answered quickly with absolute conviction. Very good, I'm glad to hear that. The answer is yes, he is Minato's son, and could you imagine him forcing this burden upon someone else? However, there must never be a word about this. He wouldn't last a day if it did. Do you understand? Hiruzen asked demandingly. Yes sir, Kakashi said after thinking for a moment. Assassins from Iwa Stone, sir. Exactly, possibly Kumo Cloud too, the Hokage said. If this ever got out he would not last a week, he will already be in enough from our own people, we don't need professionals at it too. Anyway, he will need protection if he is to survive. I want you to choose 5 others that you trust, not with this information as it is an SS class village secret but with his safety, to guard him in 3 shifts of 2. This assignment will last at least a month or 2 as I expect the worst of the trouble to occur in this time. Understood. Yes sir, Kakashi replied with a sparkle of hope that was previously absent back in his eye. And Kakashi, the Hokage continued, if anyone tries to harm your new charge, Uzumaki Naruto, they are to be taken directly to T. They will be tortured to death. If it comes up, send a shadow clone to remove the offender, there must always be guards, is that clear? Yes sir, Kakashi replied, sobered by Sandame's seriousness. Good. Go find the 5 other members of your team and report back. After that he will be taken back to the natal care ward at the hospital. He will probably stay there for the next 2 or 3 months, until things have calmed down, then he will be moved to the orphanage. Sir, can I? Kakashi started but was cut off by the Sandame. As much as I wish it was possible, there are 3 reasons it is not, Hiruzen started as he held up 3 fingers. 1. You're too young, he said as he dropped 1 finger. 2. It would be too suspicious if you did. His only remaining student is adopting a baby, that is just asking for trouble. And there is the same reason I had to give Fugaku. Fugaku. Kakashi exclaimed in surprise. That was never going to happen, but the reason I gave is still valid. You are the last member of a minor clan and Naruto becoming a member would throw the balance of power within Konoha out of control. That doesn't even bring the fact that every member of the civilian council would block it if it was a non-clan member. Trust me, if I could allow it, I would. Unfortunately, the orphanage is the best of bad choices, Hiruzen finished explaining. You are dismissed. Yes sir, Kakashi acknowledged, turning to leave as Hiruzen deactivated the security seals. The 3-year-old Uzumaki Naruto was not happy, safe but not happy. For some reason no one seemed to like him. Not the ladies who were nice to the other orphans, not the other orphans, not even the random children that he occasionally met when the ladies took them to the park were nice to him. 1 or 2 times he had even heard parents whisper to their children that he was a bad boy and if they played with him they would become bad too. He didn't think he was supposed to hear them when they said that or the few times when people would say something about a demon and look at him with scary eyes. Every time he left the orphanage all the adults would give him weird looks that always made him feel like he didn't belong. In fact the only person who didn't make him feel like that was the nice old man who wore a funny red and white hat and smelled like weird smoke. The old man came by the orphanage every once in a while to spend some time with him and take him around the village. It was always fun to go places with him. When they go out the adults always greet him and call him Hokage-sama. They always have very different expressions around him. Though they do occasionally send him strange looks, there are far fewer. Unfortunately when he left the ladies in the orphanage went back to being mean. They always fed him last and there were times when they didn't give him enough food. Sometimes he thought they did it on purpose, other times the bigger kids took some of his food and when he said something the lady in charge for the day would ignore him or the really mean ones sent him to his room saying that bad boys don't deserve to eat. Other times when the ladies were teaching the orphans to read or when he tried to look at a book they would send him to his room and say bad boys don't deserve to learn. Once he heard one of the mean ladies say something about, keep the demon stupid. He didn't think he was supposed to hear it. None of the other kids did and they were closer to her. He could deal with the mean ladies and not enough food, but what really got to him was the loneliness. Sometimes it seemed to gnaw at his chest, and it wasn't his stomach because that sometimes hurt at the same time. The last couple of days everyone had been giving him looks that seemed worse than usual. He didn't know why, but it kind of scared him. He really didn't understand it though. Today was October 10th, his birthday. On everyone else's birthday people would give them happier than normal looks but not him. It wasn't even just to ladies at the orphanage. When everyone had gone to the park yesterday the adults seemed to be getting ready for a party and happy, but when they saw him they shot him looks that made him feel cold. He honestly wanted to just stay in his room, away from those looks, even if it was lonely. Hokage's office. Inu, the Hokage called out. Hokage-sama, came the reply as the dog masked Anbu faded into view. It is October 10th today. Yes sir. When was the last time we had to execute someone for trying to hurt Naruto? Sarutobi asked his Anbu. Almost a year ago sir, the Anbu replied, not missing a beat. Good, though I suspect something might happen tonight. Have your full team guard him tonight and seal his room so no one but you can go in or out until morning, the Hokage ordered. It is his birthday. People often get drunk worse than usual at the Kyuubi festival, so it wouldn't surprise me if that happens. However, may I suggest that you don't order their deaths this time? Giving his Anbu a piercing look, here is in motions for him to explain himself while speaking. Why would you say that Inu? Sir, I'm not saying they shouldn't spend some time at the T&I division in their treatments, but it might be an effective warning to leave them alive afterward with the warning that if it ever happens again the treatment won't be stopping while they are alive. Then we dump them at their homes and let them pay any medical bills that are necessary, the dog-masked man defends. I see, you may proceed, but if anything ends up happening to Naruto, all bets are off, replies the Hokage. Yes sir, the Anbu says as he leaves. Naruto's room. Naruto went to bed early, not wanting to be around the mean looks anymore. He didn't actually go to sleep, but stayed in his room waiting for the night to end. For some reason he felt jumpy and not very tired, as though something was about to happen. Mount Mayuboku. It's happening Pops, just like you said it would, said a small orange toad with a blue vest and bluish-purple markings on his face and stomach. Good, Gamakichi, just remember to tell him who you are and that the fourth arranged for you to be summoned to him on his third birthday, but most importantly remember to tell him how to summon you back to him. That way he can have a friend and if he ever gets in trouble he can get help. Remember to dispel like I taught you when it is time, the giant dull red toad replied. Okay Pops, I'm going now, the little toad said before disappearing from Mt. Mayuboku in the summoning plane in a puff of smoke. Naruto's room. Naruto was just on the verge of falling asleep when a popping sound echoed through his room causing him to jump up in time to see a small frog appear on his bed. Yo, the small frog said as soon as the smoke cleared and he could see Naruto. A speaking frog, said Naruto. I'm not a frog, I am a freaking toad, you dimwit, said Gamakichi. Still, a speaking toad, how is that possible? Who are you anyway? Where are you from? Why are you here? How did you get here? Naruto asked almost too quickly for Gamakichi to understand, until he suddenly seemed to realize where he was. We have to be quiet otherwise the ladies will yell at me, and they are kind of scary today. Slow down one at a time. I'll answer the ones I can. First of all, I'm a summoner. Summoned creatures are different from animals, but other than that we are stronger than animals and can talk. I don't know how. I guess I'm just too young, Then again, if I was older, I might not fit in this room. I'm from MT. Mayuboku. I guess that is like the Konoha of the toads. The reason I'm here is because of that tattoo on your right hand. That yawned, that fourth guy made it to summon me on your third birthday. Naruto lifted his left hand and saw a tattoo that had never been there before. Where did this weird drawing come from? I don't know, other than it is a seal that the fourth guy made to summon me, Gamakichi answered. A seal. What's that? I don't know, Pops said he would tell me when I grow up. That's what he always says when we're talking about interesting stuff, Gamakichi replied. Man, Gigi always says the same thing. You'll understand when you grow up. Or, I'll tell you when you are older. He says that whenever I ask about my parents, at least he doesn't tell me my parents abandoned me like the orphanage ladies. He said much more quietly before continuing, I wish I could grow up now so I could understand. Why would you want to grow up? There is so much to do now, Gamakichi said looking confused. Like making friends, eating candy, and learning cool stuff. But I don't have any friends, Naruto said in a quiet voice. Then I'll be your friend. Gamakichi said, thinking, he looks really lonely, but he is interesting, before continuing, but could you give me some candy? Really, you'll really be my friend. Yada. I finally have a friend, Naruto said jumping up in excitement. That place inside his chest that sometimes hurt seemed much smaller. Sure, I can give you some, whenever I can get some myself. But we're going to have so much fun together, this will be awesome, I finally have a friend. Wow, thanks, Gamakichi said, astonished at his excitement at just having a friend and wondering what the village people had done to prevent his new friend from having a single friend. It was just sad. How lonely must the kid have been, literally starving for companionship, just for someone to talk to. Nay, now that we are friends, can you tell me your name? Naruto said, picking it up again. I'm Gamakichi, what's your name? Gamakichi said. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Datbayo. Naruto exclaimed happily. Nice to meet you, Fishcake. It's not Fishcake, it's Maelstrom. Naruto shot back. Do you even know what a maelstrom is? Gamakichi asked. No, not really. So what is it? I think it is a really big storm, not too sure though. So what is this place like anyway? Gamakichi asked. So began the conversation that marked the start of Naruto's first real friendship. Naruto and Gamakichi talked for several hours, telling each other about their homes and Gamakichi telling Naruto about his pop and brother and the elders and some of the other toads from MT. Mayuboku. Their conversation continued until Gamakichi saw Naruto start to nod off. Okay, it is time for me to go home now, I'll see you next time, Naruto. Gamakichi said, getting ready to dispel. Wait. How will I see you again? Naruto asked with a hint of desperation in his voice. That was way too close, Gamakichi said with a sigh of relief. I almost forgot the most important thing. I summoned myself again. Just smear a little bit of blood over the summoning tattoo. Also, Pops said it was important that you don't tell anyone about me. He said summons are secretive like that, but I'm not sure why. Another one of those things I need to be older for. That sounds like fun. Something for just the two of us, yada, Naruto replied, excitement once again filling his voice. Of course, a boss always has to look after his underlings, Gamakichi said haughtily before deflating. At least that's what Pops always says. Naruto started laughing sleepily, and just as he started to fall asleep he saw Gamakichi disappear in a puff of smoke. For the first time in a long time he fell asleep with a smile on his face. 1 year later. It has been just a week, less than a year since Naruto first met Gamakichi, and it has been the most fun that he has ever had. Every time he could get away from the orphanage ladies or whenever he was sent to his room for some made-up reason. And by now he had realized that most of their reasons were made up, they just wanted to get him away from everyone else. But Naruto didn't mind anymore. Even if none of the other children would be his friend, he had someone he could talk to. For the past 6 months he had been learning how to escape the orphanage ladies so he could go somewhere and summon Gamakichi to have fun with. Just like every night for the past months, Naruto and Gamakichi were sitting on his bed. Tonight they were sharing the couple pieces of candy that Naruto had managed to find. They were talking about the old toad sages of Mt. Mayuboku, Shima and Fukusaku, and how Shima was always grouchy and would hit anyone who got in her way with her kitchen spoon. Just as they were getting into talking about the old toads, something unexpected happened. He felt a tingling in his right hand, just like when he summons Gamakichi, but from the wrong hand. A puff of smoke appeared, and when it disappeared there was a small pile of books, just like the ones that the ladies wouldn't let him read. Awesome, books. I've always wanted to see one but no one would ever let me, Naruto said with a happy smile splitting his face as he went to pick one up, only for his smile to fade as soon as he opened it. I've finally got some books, but I can't read them, Naruto finished sadly. What do you mean you can't read it? I thought they were supposed to teach you to read and other basic stuff like that. They are, but every time I start to teach they send me to my room for some made-up reason, Naruto replied. Okay, then I'll teach you to read, how does that sound? Gamakichi asked, secretly disgusted and pissed off that people would refuse to teach his friend just because of something he couldn't even control. So Gamakichi started teaching Naruto to read, and over the next 2 months he would learn how to read at an incredible rate. October 10th, 4 years after Naruto's birth. Hello Naruto, how are you doing today? The old man wearing red and white robes and a triangular hat with the kanji for fire on it asked. I'm doing great today Gigi, old man, the 4-year-old boy said, not completely meaning it. He was wearing nondescript clothes, a white t-shirt with a red spiral on the back, faded gray shorts, and worn-out sandals. So what do you want to do today Naruto? Can we go somewhere to get something good to eat and maybe get some candy? Naruto asked, thinking about his best friend's love of candy. Alright Naruto, but what would you like to eat? The old man asked. I don't know, you pick Gigi, the whisker-marked blonde replied. What would you like? Wait, I know, how would you like some ramen Naruto? What's ramen? Let's go find out, okay. Sure, Gigi, Naruto replied as the two started walking away from the orphanage. Like last year when they went out just before his birthday, all of the adults' eyes were cold, but it seems even worse than last time. Gigi, why does everyone have those scary eyes today? It looks like they are going to have a party, shouldn't they be happy? Naruto asked after they had walked a few minutes. Yes Naruto, they should be happy, but don't worry about them, Hiruzen answered, secretly amazed that a 4-year-old boy had been able to pick up on the animosity bubbling around them even if he couldn't yet understand what it meant. After a few more minutes of walking Naruto began to smell something amazing and his mouth immediately began watering. Following his nose he started to move faster, almost running, making the old Hokage hurry to catch up as he called out to Naruto. Naruto, where are you going in such a hurry? To wherever that amazing smell is coming from, he replied before coming to a stop just outside a little building with a sign that said, Ichiraku Ramen. I guess this was a good choice, Hiruzen thought, but how did he smell it from all the way back there? I bet that an Inuzuka would have trouble doing that. Well, that works well Naruto, this is where I was planning to bring you anyway. Really Gigi, that's great, it smells so good. Well go right on in Naruto, the old Hokage said before following Naruto into the stand and sitting on one of the chairs at the counter. A voice called out from an open door behind the counter. We'll be with you in just a second, Ayame, can you go see who it is for me? A young girl, probably 9 or 10 years old, with peach-colored shin and shoulder-length brown hair, comes out from the back room and first takes in the Hokage as he is much taller, but soon shifts his gaze to the young boy next to him. Naruto can practically see the hearts form in her eyes as she suddenly lets out a loud squeal, kawaii, and appears right next to him so quickly he never sees her move. Suddenly he finds himself scooped into her arms and held there, too surprised to struggle. After a few seconds, he realized that he didn't want to struggle. Here was someone other than the old man that was actually being nice to him. Hearing his daughter's squeal, a middle-aged man with tan skin and short brown hair covered by an odd white hat comes out. Seeing the Hokage, he cheerfully said, "Hokage-sama," before turning to the little boy that his daughter was holding. "Tyuki, how are you doing today?" Hiruzen asked. Hearing a new voice, Naruto quickly looked up just as the man turned to him. As Naruto looked at him, he saw something he had never seen before. Instead of his eyes turning cold and angry, they became soft and sad. "I hear it is your 4th birthday today. Happy birthday. My name is Ichiraku Tyuki and the girl that is now attached to you is my daughter, Ayame. What can I get you to eat?" the man, Tyuki, asked him. Naruto looked at the man, almost too surprised to speak. No one other than the old man had ever wished him happy birthday before, and no one had ever hugged him before. Thinking about what the man with kind eyes said, Naruto quickly asked for his advice. "I don't know, it is just that something smells really good. Do you know what that is?" Tyuki said with a thoughtful look. "Maybe miso would be good for you." "Miso? Yep. Miso-flavored ramen. It is a really good miso broth with ramen noodles floating in it with some vegetables and pork slices." "How does that sound?" "That sounds great," Naruto replied. "And what would you like, Hokage-sama?" Tyuki asked. "How about we just get 2 bowls of miso ramen?" Hiruzen answered good-naturedly. "Okay, coming right up. Ayame, come help me back here before you strangle the poor boy." "Okay dad, I'm coming," Ayame said reluctantly. As soon as they both disappear into the back room, Naruto turns to the Hokage. "Their eyes, they are nice." "Yes Naruto, unlike a lot of the villagers, they accept you for you and can see that you are a really good boy." Hiruzen smiled as he saw Naruto's face brighten. Sometimes the most important thing is to find those people who will. "Yeah, from now on I will protect those people who are nice to me," Naruto promised to himself. "Ayame, here is the first bowl of miso. Take it out to Naruto for me, would you?" Tyuki commanded gently from the back room. "Okay dad," Ayame said as she appeared from the back room carrying a large bowl in her hands before setting it down in front of Naruto. "This smells really good, how do I eat it?" Naruto asked. "First you take a pair of chopsticks and break them apart like so," Ayame said as she reached for a pair of chopsticks stuck together in a large tin on the counter. Then she twisted them and suddenly she was holding 2 sticks. "Then you use them to pick up a noodle and lift it from the broth to eat it. Remember, it might be really hot, so blow on it," she continued, showing him how to pick up some of the long noodles from the broth and blow on them to cool them down before holding them out for Naruto to eat. That is all there is to it, though you might want to eat some to the other pork and vegetables between bites of the noodles. Then at the end you drink the broth, she finished as she watched Naruto's eyes light up as soon as he tasted the noodles. "This is the best thing I've ever tasted," Naruto said as he took the chopsticks from Ayame, and Tyuki came out and placed a second bowl in front of the Hokage. "I'm glad to see you like it, kid," Tyuki said as he watched Naruto gobble down his ramen at insane speeds, only for him to look at the bowl mournfully when there was none left. "Would you like another bowl?" "Can I really?" Naruto asked hopefully. "They never let me have seconds at the orphanage, even when the bigger kids take my food." "Of course you can," Tyuki reassured Naruto, noticing the grave and slightly angry look on the Hokage's face as he went back into the kitchen. Naruto's second bowl came quickly, and this bowl he ate a little slower after he looked over at the Hokage and saw him savoring his ramen in a way that looked almost dignified as it is possible when eating ramen anyway. So though he wasn't completely successful, he tried to emulate the old Hokage and he ended up eating a little slower. When they had both finished, the Hokage placed money on the counter and looked at Naruto. Naruto was looking at Tyuki almost shyly, and it reflected in his voice when he started talking. "Can I come here again?" he quietly asked. "Of course you can. You are welcome here any time," Tyuki said in a kind voice. "Anyway, I'm sure Ayame would love to see you again." With that, the Hokage and Naruto headed back toward the orphanage, stopping only to get a bunch of candy along the way. Hokage's office. Shortly after dropping Naruto off at the orphanage, Sarutobi Hiruzen arrived back at his office to make preparations for what would happen that night. "Inu." "Yes, sir," the dog-masked Anbu said, his head bowed to his leader as he appeared. "You know what tonight is, you know what to do about it despite me sending you on more dangerous missions during the past year," the Hokage said to one of his most trusted Anbu. "Yes, sir," the Anbu replied. "Good. Get to it," the Hokage commanded, watching his shinobi disappear in a shunshin to do his job. Mount Mayuboku. "Yo pops, I'm home," Gamakichi said when he reappeared at his home on the summoning plane. "Gamakichi, how is your friend doing?" his father, Gamabunta asked. "He's good pops, but he's so smart it's almost scary." "What do you mean?" "Well, did you know that the people that were supposed to take care of him refused to teach him to read?" "What? They did what?" Gamabunta exploded. "Yep pops, they refused to teach him how to read, making up some excuse to send him out every time they were supposed to teach him," Gamakichi replied. "So what did you mean that he is so smart it is almost scary?" "Well, about 2 months ago a bunch of books appeared from some sort of storage seal on his right hand and he got really excited because it was the first time he was ever allowed a book. That lasted until he opened one up and realized that he couldn't read. So I started teaching him to read and in just 2 months he can read much, much better than I can. I mean he can read in an hour what would take me a week and he understands it better than me too. In fact he has already run out of books to read and has started to read them over. But he memorized a couple of them by just reading them once," Gamakichi explained. I guess he takes after his father and more than just looks if what you have told me is true. But that other seal is interesting. I guess Minato was hedging his bets," Gamabunta said before letting out a bellowing laugh. "So how do you like him, Kichi?" "He's awesome pops, he's really fun and he even shares his sweets, even when I know he doesn't get them often." "But why did you wait so long to ask?" Gamakichi asked. "I wanted to give you a chance to get to know him first before I asked. Anyway, keep watching out for the kid, okay Kichi?" "Sure pops, he is my underling after all," Gamakichi replied in a condescending tone. Ha 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 ha. 1 month later, orphanage. Things had continued in the same fashion they had been since the books first appeared. Most days Naruto would sneak away from the orphanage and summon Gamakichi to play with him, then after everyone else went to sleep he would summon him again or sometimes he would just read. But more and more he would summon Gamakichi since he had practically memorized every book he had. He had summoned Gamakichi to play again, bored of reading the same books again and again. "Gamakichi, do you know any games we could play?" Naruto asked plaintively. "How about Jan-Ken Pon, rock paper scissors? My brother Gamatatsu just taught me how to play, but he isn't very good," Gamakichi said with a sigh. "Sure, how do you play?" "Well, first you say, rock paper scissors shoot, and you hold out your hand in one of 3 ways. If you hold your hand out flat it is considered paper which can cover rock, which is what it is called when you hold out your hand in a fist, but is cut by scissors, which is what it is called when you put out your first two fingers, and scissors are in turn crushed by rock, Gamakichi explained. It sounds like fun, but what is the point? Naruto asked. That is what I thought at first too, but I heard Pops tell Gamatatsu about it one day. He said it is a lot like the techniques shinobi use. Each type of technique is strong against some things and weak against others. Shinobi, you mean those people who make shapes with their hands and do cool stuff that disappear, like Hokage Gigi. Naruto said. Exactly, but he is actually the strongest shinobi in the village and one of the strongest in the world. At least that's what Pops said, Gamakichi answered to Naruto's unasked question. Awesome, but what do you mean about ninja techniques? Naruto asked. Pops said it is like the elements or taijutsu that shinobi use. Every element that shinobi use, like spitting a fireball or making a wall of water, is strong and weak against another element, like how if someone spit the fireball and it hit a water wall it would fizzle out, but if it collided with a wind bullet it would get much stronger. The same is true for types of taijutsu. Say you had 3 fighters, one is very strong, one is very fast, and one is very agile. The strong one wouldn't be able to hit the agile one, the agile fighter couldn't avoid the fast one, and the fast one couldn't hurt the strong fighter, Gamakichi explained. I see, let's play. Naruto exclaimed. Over the next half an hour Naruto and Gamakichi played Jan-Ken-Pon, but no matter what he tried, Naruto couldn't win more than 1 in 10 games. This is so unfair, it is so much easier for you with your smaller hands. You can change your choice really quickly when you see me make mine, Naruto complained. So you finally realized it, huh? Gamatatsu still hasn't. But that is what the shinobi world is about, tricking your opponent. If you learn to move your hands faster you could probably. When Gamakichi started talking again, Naruto's right hand started tingling again. Just as he was about to say something about it, a plume of smoke appeared, cutting Gamakichi off, and when it cleared there were more books and almost twice as many this time. Yada! More books, Naruto exclaimed happily. Cool. You were really starting to get bored with the last set, huh? I guess it is good that there are so many books this time considering how quickly you can read now, Gamakichi replied. Yeah, I guess so. Look, there are some story books like last time, but there are also some like this, he said as he held up a basic math textbook, a book labeled, A History of Konoha, and another labeled, The Basics of Chakra. What's chakra? Chakra is the energy that ninja use cool jutsu and stuff like walk on the walls or water. At least that's what Pops says, Gamakichi answered. That is so awesome, Naruto said, already opening the book. I can see my underling is having fun, Gamakichi said to see if Naruto was even paying attention anymore, not really surprised when Naruto didn't even reply to his underlying joke. Seeing how absorbed Naruto was, Gamakichi dispelled returning to the summoning plane. Once again Naruto's schedule changed, he would still sneak away to summon Gamakichi and play during the day, but now he would just read his new books at night. The chakra book was just so interesting that he couldn't put it away during the times he dared to take it out from under the loose floorboard under his futon. He didn't want one of the ladies to take it away after all. So he only took it out after everyone else went to bed. The orphanage ladies never checked on him after he went to bed. That was really lucky for him, especially because if they had, they would have seen how his eyes had changed and the pupils became slits, allowing him to read his book as though it was still daytime. After reaching the end of The Basics of Chakra, Naruto couldn't help but think how cool chakra was, really wishing he could use it himself. Maybe Kichi will know how to use it. I guess I will ask him tomorrow, Naruto thought to himself. Putting away the now finished book, Naruto looked through his new books again, wondering what to read next. Searching through his books, he saw what looked like a letter hanging out of one. Blinking in curiosity, he took out the letter and started reading. Hey Naruto. How are you doing? Bad question, I know, but I have to ask as I can't be there to see for myself. You should be almost 4 when you read this, and since I'm dead there isn't too much I can do for you at the moment. Just to make sure I'm not completely useless, I wrote this letter and placed the storage seal on you to give you the stuff that you will need to survive. I just want you to know, despite what other people might say, you were wanted and loved. If they hadn't died, your parents would let nothing in the world keep them away from you. To make sure you know this, I placed several seals on you. They have several functions as you might have guessed. The first one, the one on your left hand, lets you summon the toads. The second one on your right hand is a storage seal that will give you new books to read and learn from every 3 months. As you might have noticed, there are books on stuff like chakra, math, and history. Math and history is just general stuff that everyone should know, but the chakra book I gave you in case you want to become a shinobi. Have you ever thought about becoming a shinobi? If you have, in another 3 months there will be a book that explains hand seals and another letter that will tell you a set of hand seals that, as long as you can mold chakra with them, will unlock another set of books. These are a series of books will help teach you more about being a shinobi, including an introduction to the shinobi arts, an introduction to fuinjutsu, by Namikaze Minato, and a guide to physical development necessary for youthful taijutsu, by Maida Guy. The first one will introduce you to ninjutsu, the ninja arts, taijutsu, the physical arts, and genjutsu, the illusionary arts. For now I suggest you start with the guide to physical development and start training. Just remember that more advanced books will come every 3 months. To help you out with your training, I placed a limited sensory gravity seal on your shoulder. This seal will very slowly increase the gravity that affects your body, similar to the weights in the physical development but better. This seal is called a limit sensory because it detects when you are completely used to the gravity level and slightly increases it. If it becomes necessary, you can shut it off with a pulse of chakra and a simple kai, or increase it manually when you begin to train. If you decide not to become a shinobi and don't do this, the seal will continue to give you books for general education. I know this isn't much, but I promise there will be more. Love, Father. They loved me, Naruto thought after reading the letter from his father. He began crying. They really loved me. They might have been pushing him to do it, but was more determined than ever to become a shinobi. Thinking about it, he decided to ask Gamakichi if he knew how to get access to chakra. Over the next month, Naruto worked with Gamakichi to get access to his chakra. First he had to learn how to meditate. Then when he learned to steady his mind, he turned his attention inward, trying to feel the flow of energy through his chakra circulatory system. Though what the chakra circulatory system was he still wasn't completely sure, Gamakichi wasn't sure either. It was one of those things that his pops said he would understand when he gets older. Then the final step was learning how to manipulate chakra flowing within him. Once he finally learned to manipulate his chakra, he began doing the exercises described in The Basics of Chakra, starting with the leaf floating exercise. Despite it being the easiest chakra control exercise, it took him almost 2 months to successfully keep a leaf floating over his forehead without blowing the leaf off of his forehead or destroying it. During this time he kept up with his reading and sneaking off to play with Gamakichi. So by the time he received his next batch of books he had already finished reading all of his books and doing the exercises in the math book. He even managed to read a couple of them, including the basics of chakra, more than once, and was starting to try the tree, or in his case the wall walking exercise. Finished with his last batch of books, he picked up a new book and read it until he was ready to go to sleep, never guessing that the simple act of falling asleep would give him one of the things he wanted most in the world, a mother. Mindscape. Waking up in an unfamiliar place, Naruto looked around. In one direction was a sewer-like landscape, in the other was what appeared to be a beach on a lake, like those he had read about. Out of the two options he definitely liked the beach better. Naruto started walking down the beach, and after several minutes of traveling he came to a traditional house that somehow seemed to be out of place. His curiosity piqued. He decided to go in and explore the house. At first it seemed to be completely empty, but when he came to the master bedroom he found something that he would never have expected. In that room were two coffin-like blocks of what appeared to be ice or crystal. One of them was almost completely clear, like it was barely there at all. The other was so opaque that he couldn't even tell if there was anything in it. The clear one held a beautiful woman with waist-length crimson hair. I wonder who she is, Naruto muttered to himself, reaching to touch the clear crystalline box with his fingertips, excited for some reason. As soon as he touched the box, the substance holding the woman shattered and she would have fallen to the ground if Naruto hadn't run forward to catch her. Anyo, are you okay, miss? Naruto asked, still supporting the unknown woman as she started to wake up. What happened? Where am I? Who are you? She asked, still dazed. I don't know what happened or even where we are, but my name is Uzumaki Naruto, Datbayo. Naruto, you are Naruto? She asked, taking a step back to get a better look at him. Yeah, who? He started to ask, but was cut off when the woman suddenly hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. At first he wanted to struggle, but as he stood there with her arms around him, he could feel another part of that knot of loneliness in his chest start to come undone. After just several minutes of just standing there in her arms he began to feel her shaking, and after a second he began to hear her sobbing. When she finally looked up he could see the tears flowing down her cheeks. I can't believe it worked. I wanted to meet you so badly, she said through her tears. But why? Why did you want to meet me? And who are you? Naruto asked, slightly overwhelmed, especially by the expression he could see on her face. It was something he had never seen before, so there was no way he could know that the expression was one of love. I'm sorry if I surprised you, Naru-chan, but I'm your mother. My name is Uzumaki Kushina, the woman said, tears still running down her face, but Naruto could tell they were tears of happiness. Oka-san. Ka-chan. But I thought you were dead, Naruto said, a little accusation in his voice. But I am dead, Naru-chan. I died the day you were born. What you see here is a combination of ninjutsu and fuinjutsu that your father and I performed, so even after death we could be here for you, Kushina said. But where are we anyway? And why did you wait so long to see me? That is easy, we are in your mindscape, Kushina answered, and the reason I didn't meet you until now is because I am technically a copy of your mother made out of chakra. The technique that we use to make this chakra construct is called a cage bunshin. It is a type of ninjutsu that makes a perfect copy of the creator, but it takes a lot of chakra. When your father made this possible, he set it up to activate when you produced enough chakra to sustain us, so we wouldn't just disappear and leave you alone again. He set it up so until you produced enough chakra we would be in stasis, asleep you could say. Your father is over there in that block of ice. When you start producing enough chakra he will wake up too. After thinking about what his mother said for a couple minutes, Naruto asked another question. So what is a mindscape? How to explain? Think about it like a dream. The mindscape is a place in your mind very like where dreams come from, Kushina answered, trying to figure out how to explain such a complicated concept to a 5-year-old boy. Naruto immediately started tearing up. So this is all just a dream. When I wake up again this will all be gone and I won't ever have met you. No, this is not a dream, it is all real. Think of this place as being right next door to a dream, but where a dream fades when you wake up this place is real, Kushina quickly reassured Naruto. So if this is not a dream, will I still wake up? And what will happen when I do? Naruto asked, still worried. Yes, Naru-chan, you will still wake up, but don't worry, I will still be here even when you wake up. Just remember, if you want to come back you just have to be yourself here, just want it with all your might when you fall asleep in the real world, Kushina told her son. So if this place is in my mind, can I change it if I want to? Naruto asked out of curiosity. I don't know. I guess it might be possible that this is part of your mind after all, but I don't know how you would do it. Well, okay, whatever it is doesn't really matter. I was just curious. Enough of the serious stuff. Tell me about yourself, Naru-chan. I want to know more about my son, Kushina said happily. As Naruto told his mother about his life and answered her questions, he never noticed the brief flashes of anger that flitted over her face, nor did he notice her happiness when he told her about his best friend Gamakichi. Naruto and Kushina talked about his life until he started to get tired. Seeing Naruto's exhaustion, Kushina took his head into her lap and started to gently sing to him. Relaxing completely, Naruto quickly fell asleep with a huge contented smile on his face. Despite some of the ladies that took care of the orphans, including the one that was in charge, being even meaner to Naruto than before, Naruto was happier than he had ever been before. He had a mother. Even if she was technically dead, it didn't stop him from spending every night in his mindscape with her. He actually found it surprisingly easy to get back to his mindscape. All he had was to think about his mother as he fell asleep and he would immediately find himself in his mindscape. Since he always appeared in the same place, where the beach met the sewer, he started calling that place the door to his mindscape, at least to himself. He never did go down the sewer. As soon as he appeared, he would always run as fast as he could to his mother's house. He was still sneaking out to summon Gamakichi, and getting better at all the time, and reading his books at night before he went to bed, but the perpetual smile that he had on his face all the time was caused by the time he spent with his mother. In the couple of weeks that had passed since he met his mother, he had started to get the hang of wall walking. When he first tried it, he had accidentally used too much chakra when he tried running up the wall like it was suggested in his book on the basics of chakra. He was blasted off the wall after just a couple of steps, sending him crashing to the ground and leaving a big dent in the wall. Its stomach still growled every time he thought about the aftermath of that attempt. Still trying to pick himself up off of the ground, Naruto heard a crash as his door banged open and the lady who ran the orphanage walked in. Her eyes immediately went to the wall and she started yelling at him. What have you little brat? Do you know how much it will cost to fix the damage you have caused? What were you trying to do? Bang your head through the wall and make yourself a new window or something, you stupid little shit. I should have known something like this would happen someday. You are just too stupid to know any better after all. But still, we will have to punish you, she said, her voice now taking on a slightly happier tone. What should we do? Aha, it might be a bit lacking, but as of this moment you cannot leave this room for 2 days for any reason. Not to eat, not to use the bathroom, for no reason at all. So for 2 days he stayed in his room, not even able to summon Gamakichi or read for fear that he would be discovered when one of the ladies came to make sure he wasn't causing trouble, as they said. When he finally got out, his stomach felt like someone had punched him over and over, he was just so hungry. He also had to go to the bathroom really badly, so badly that it actually hurt. After he had recovered from that ordeal, he decided to do the exercise a bit differently. He thought about it and realized that the goal was to get your feet to stick to the wall with chakra, but why did he have to be moving to start with? Thinking that way, he laid down on the ground and tried to stick first one foot then the other to the wall, getting a better feel for how much chakra it would actually take to stick to the wall. Eventually, he started walking slowly up the wall, trying to get the timing of sticking to the wall and releasing his chakra down so he could actually move. When he got it down, he started practicing it on the various surfaces and actual trees. When he snuck out to summon Gamakichi, as he couldn't actually move on to the next exercise because he couldn't find a big enough body of water. At the same time as he was getting control of his chakra, he was also learning from his mother. She was helping him master the math exercises and telling him more details for a lot of the history in his history textbook. Especially after they found out that any books or scrolls that Naruto read appeared in his mindscape. So despite his young age and the conditions he was forced to live in, he was happy and learning quickly. Mindscape. Ka-chan, can you tell me about my family? Naruto asked about 3 weeks after first meeting his mother. They had talked a lot about each other's lives, and to say Kushina was pissed off was an understatement. She would have been pissed off if any child was forced to live in such isolation, but the fact that it was her son made it 100 times worse. It would be safe to say that if she could have gotten out of her son's mindscape, she would have gone on a rampage, not that Naruto ever knew that. Not quite yet, but soon I promise, Kushina answered reassuringly. Then what about your family? What do you mean, Naru-chan? Kushina asked in return. I mean, just like you're my mom, what about your mom and dad? Naruto said. I come from the Uzumaki clan that used to live in Uzushiogakure no Sato, the village hidden in the whirling tides, Kushina said with a far-off look in her eyes. We have a clan? Naruto asked excitedly. No, not anymore. Our clan was renowned for our longevity and our skills in fuinjutsu. We were so good that many people feared our village. So much so that during the Second Ninja War Kumo Cloud, Kiri Mist, and Iwa Stone villages formed an alliance and destroyed Uzushiogakure. I would have been dead too if not for the fact that I was visiting a distant relative named Uzumaki Mito who lived here in Konoha with her husband Senju Hashirama, the Shadaime Hokage, first Hokage, Kushina answered. I know I have a book on fuinjutsu Ka-chan, but what is it? How to explain it? Ah, that's it. You know those seals on your hands. The ones that your books come from and let you summon toads. Kushina said after a minute. Yeah. Well, those seals are a good example of fuinjutsu. Fuinjutsu is a ninja art that very few people are good at, it can be hard to learn. But the Uzumaki clan has a special way to make seals that can be used in battle. Unlike nin, tai, or genjutsu, fuinjutsu can do just about anything if you take the time to figure out how to do it. A really basic example is a storage scroll. Shinobi often use them to carry a lot of stuff while taking up very little room. What a storage scroll does is make a bubble of space, I guess you could say, that you can put lots of stuff in with the entrance being a simple scroll. That is so awesome, can you teach me that, please? Naruto almost shouted in his excitement. Of course I will, Naru-chan. I wasn't considered a seal mistress for nothing after all. I would be happy to teach you, Kushina said with a happy laugh before continuing. But first, start reading that fuinjutsu book and any others that pop out of the seal, okay? Okay, Ka-chan, I'll start reading it tomorrow night before I go to bed. Good boy, do you want to start now? Kushina asked tentatively. Yay. Let's start. Okay, but be warned, this is probably the most boring part. Do you still want to do it? Of course I still want to start. Well, you have been warned. The first part takes quite a while. You have to be able to write perfect kanji before you can start making your own seals. Are you ready to start? Kushina asked in a somewhat ominous tone that made Naruto gulp in trepidation before he replied. Let's go, if we don't start I won't learn. Alright, let's go, Databane, she said thinking, crap, it's back again, I thought I had finally gotten rid of it this time. It was hard to say for sure, but Naruto thought he was making good progress on his study of fuinjutsu and it was fun to learn. He had now read 3 books on fuinjutsu, An Introduction to Fuinjutsu, by Namikaze Minato, Fuinjutsu for Beginners Level 1 and 2 by Jiraiya, and was working on Level 3. The Level 1 book had appeared from the storage seal on his right hand just before he met his mother, and the second of which came 3 months after he met his mother, but he also received several more to read recently, when he unlocked the shinobi stuff his dad mentioned. He had read the scroll about hand seals, then with his mother's help learned how to position his hands and mold chakra in the right way to use them. Underscore. Flashback. After he started reading the scroll about hand seals, he started summarizing it for himself. There were 12 main hand seals, all of which were based upon the Chinese zodiac. Tori, bird. Inoshishi, boar. Inu, dog, a hand seal commonly affiliated with ice release and some wind release jutsu. Tatsu, dragon. Ushi, ox. Tora, tiger, a hand seal commonly affiliated with fire release. Habi, snake, a hand seal is commonly affiliated with earth release and wood release. Nei, rat, a hand seal is commonly affiliated with the shadow techniques of the Nara clan. Uma, horse. Suru, monkey. Usagi, hare. Hitsuji, ram. There are also several unique hand seals that are used for certain techniques like the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique, and some clans jutsu, like the Yamanaka and Akamichi. Second, there is a way to perform one-handed seals that assist in molding chakra the same way as the 12 main seals. These seals are much more difficult to perform, and the person using them must have very good chakra control, as they don't mold the chakra as effectively, so the user must be more precise in the molding of their chakra. Finally, once someone becomes familiar with certain jutsu, they can perform them with fewer hand seals, or if they are really good, no hand seals, but as with the hand seals, this is very difficult. It requires all of the chakra control of the one-handed seals and more, but the user must be very familiar with the technique as well. Some techniques also require an activation gesture. These gestures range from clapping for certain kinjutsu, like the rumored resurrection jutsu created by the Nadaime Hokage and the dead demon consuming seal of the Yondaime, to slamming one's hands on a surface for the Kuchiyos no Jutsu, summoning technique. At least those were the important hand seals, but it was hard to perfect the hand seals with just the little pictures in the scroll, so he asked his mom for help when he got to his mindscape. After finally mastering the correct movements with his mother's help, he decided to gain access to the other books and scrolls about shinobi subjects from his storage seal. So on one of the nights he summoned Gamakichi. He reread the activation sequence that came with his third batch of books and performed it while concentrating on the seal on his right hand. With a puff-like sound, smoke filled his entire room for a minute, and when it cleared there were at least 500 books in his room. There were so many of them, from Fuinjutsu for beginners level 2 to 5, intermediate Fuinjutsu level 1 to 6, advanced Fuinjutsu level 1 to 4, even if these were thicker, a scroll on advanced chakra control, a scroll on advanced hand seal theory and jutsu creation, and even a couple of jutsu scrolls if he wasn't mistaken, among many others. There were even a couple things that weren't stuff to read. There was a box with some weird gloves that when he put them on he could barely move his hands, and another small box with some strips of paper in it. He took one out and used it as a bookmark. This could be a problem, Naruto said disbelievingly when he finished looking at all of the stuff that had just appeared. You aren't kidding, Gamakichi said as one of the pieces of candy Naruto gave him fell out of his mouth. While I'm glad that I won't run out of stuff to read anytime soon, what are we going to do with them all? There is no way I can hide these all under the loose floorboard beneath my futon. I've got an idea. I'm going to dispel, re-summon me in 10 minutes, Gamakichi said before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Mount Mayuboku. Reappearing on the summon plane, Gamakichi immediately went searching for his dad. Yo Pops, I'm back, Gamakichi said when he found him. Already? That was a quick visit tonight, Gamabunta said. I'm going back in a few minutes, but I need to ask a question. Sure. Go ahead Kichi. Well, Naruto finally got the hang of making hand seals and molding chakra in them, so he decided to get the shinobi books and seals that his father placed in that storage seal on his right hand. His old man decided to place a bunch of stuff that he might need to learn to become a shinobi in that seal that he could access when he learned how to make hand seals and mold chakra. So when he did the seals, we ran into a bit of a problem. There were over 500 books and scrolls, and if we don't do something the ladies who run the orphanage will take them all. When we realized that, I thought we could store them in one of the dry storage huts here. Can we do that, Pops? Gamakichi asked after he finished explaining the problem to his dad. I guess he was even smarter than I thought, making a storage seal that held things that he could only access when he had started down the path of a shinobi, but he probably only meant for his son to use it after he entered the academy. Gamabunta mused to himself before answering his son. Sure, Kichi, but use the third hut, the one that has been empty for a while. Thanks, Pops, Gamakichi managed to say before he felt the summoning start. Naruto's room. As soon as he appeared back in front of Naruto, he gave him the good news. Yo, I'm back with good news. I just had to ask Pops for permission first. We have some huts back home that we use to store things that need to stay dry. I just asked if we could store your books there. Thanks, Kichi. You're awesome. That is perfect. My books will be safe and I won't ever have to worry about someone trying to steal them. But how are we going to get them there? Naruto asked, no longer worried about his books. That won't be hard, it just takes a lot of time. First, keep a few books to keep here and set them to the side. After you are done with that, summon me back again. I'm going to go back and go into the storage hut, that way when I dispel some of the books I will appear right where they will be stored. Okay, you find the books that you want to keep here and I will go to the storage hut, Gamakichi said before dispelling again. Not sure what to keep. Naruto settled on keeping the rest of the beginner Fuinjutsu books as he was almost done with the level 2 book as well as a couple more history textbooks and the scroll on advanced hand seal theory and jutsu creation. He decided not to keep any of the jutsu scrolls because learning jutsu now would just get him in trouble, instead opting to learn how jutsu and hand seals really worked so when he finally got to using them he would have an easier time understanding them. His decisions were made when he swiped some blood on the summoning tattoo and Gamakichi appeared again. Are you ready? Gamakichi asked. Yeah. Good. Just start piling books on my hands, Gamakichi said as he held his small hands above his head, which wasn't as outlandish as it would have been when they first met. When they first met, he was slightly bigger than a large bullfrog. Now he was just a little smaller than a small dog, a pug for instance. I'll tell you when I can't hold any more and dispel, then give me a couple minutes to find a place to put them and summon me back to do it again. Gotcha, Datbeo, Naruto replied. So over the next couple of hours Naruto and Gamakichi successfully transported all of the books to the dry storage hut in Gamakichi's home, even replacing the books that Naruto kept under his futon. Thanks Kichi, you are the best, Naruto said when they were finally done. Of course I am. Anyway, I'm tired, I'm going home for the night, see you next time, Gamakichi shot back before he dispelled one last time. End flashback. Mindscape. Okay Naru-chan, before we go into how you actually make seals, since you finally have good enough calligraphy, she said, but paused as Naruto started pouting. Don't worry Naru-chan, I had to do the same when I was learning, but it took me a lot longer. Anyway, back to what I was saying, before I start teaching how to make actual seals, I'm going to teach you the basis of the Uzumaki style of sealing. Using this method causes any seals you make to be much more potent than if you made them with regular ink. But there are certain types of seals that require blood to make that you can't use this method to make. The Uzumaki style uses your chakra to make the seals instead of ink, or maybe a better way to say it is you turn your chakra into ink that takes the form of the seal you are making. That is why it is possible to use it in battle. You don't have to waste time and you probably won't have to write out the actual seals. But be warned, don't use this method to make any seals you haven't fully mastered, or at least don't activate them. Like I said, your chakra makes the ink take the form of the seal you are making, but to do that you have to have a very clear picture of what you want to make. For the easy things like storage seals you won't have to worry about it, but the more complex the seal the more careful you have to be. A very good thing about this method is that as soon as the seal deactivates, all evidence of the seal itself disappears and no one can copy the seal. But that has a disadvantage also. If you want the seal to last, you have to add extra chakra and kind of twist your hand as you are removing it. That stabilizes the seal and lets you reuse it, like if you are making a storage scroll or a storage seal like on your hand. Do you understand, Naru-chan? Kushina asked to make sure Naruto was following along. Yep. It is a good way to use seals in battle by making ink out of your chakra, but don't activate the seals you make this way until you have fully mastered the seal or when you are creating new seals and no one can copy them. Naruto replied, astonishing Kushina at how fast he grasped the concept, and even more when he mentioned new seals since she had never mentioned them. Very good, Kushina said, hiding her astonishment. To start with, just concentrate on forming a single symbol, okay? Okay. This method would actually be classified as a ninjutsu, fuinjutsu hybrid. You make these hand seals, she said as she showed him a series of 4 hand seals, then channel your chakra through your hand while concentrating on the symbols and eventually the layout of the symbols to make the scroll, but we can worry about that later. Just remember, don't ever tell anyone how or even that you learned this, and don't tell anyone you can use chakra unless and until you enter the academy. Naruto nods. Okay, Ka-chan. Then makes the 4 hand seals he was shown before, slamming his hand on the ground and channeling chakra. A slightly smudged symbol for Mother, Mu, haha, appears on the ground where his hand was. Seeing the symbol, Kushina immediately picks Naruto up in a huge bear hug and whispers, "I love you, Naru-chan," in his ear before kissing his cheek. Naruto immediately turned to her and said, "I love you too, Ka-chan." So things went with Naruto practicing the Uzumaki sealing method with his mother in his mindscape and chakra control in the real world. Naruto was now able to make very clear and precise kanji appear, and he started to write sentences with his chakra. He worked so hard it surprised Kushina, who sometimes had to force him to stop as he was getting close to chakra exhaustion. He had completely mastered wall tree walking by this time and was experimenting with it. When he snuck out to play with Gamakichi, he would walk while sticking a leaf to his forehead, which was hard at first, but after a bit of practice he figured out how to do it. It was hard even though he had really good chakra control. After finishing that, he started making the leaf hover a few inches away from his head, which was even harder as he had to both make it stick to his head and push it away at the same time, balancing the forces so he didn't rip the leaf apart. During the times he was sent to his room, which were becoming more and more frequent, he tried some other things. First he tried to sit on the wall, which wasn't too hard but different as he had never tried to channel chakra anywhere but his forehead and feet before. When he could sit on the wall without thinking about it at all, he tried laying on the wall, first on his back, then stomach, then sides, sometimes with his head toward the ceiling and sometimes his feet. Finally, when he could do that, he tried walking up the wall standing on his hands. That was probably the hardest because he had never tried to use the muscles in his arms like that before, though the chakra part was pretty easy. As he stuck himself to the wall one night, he realized he was unconsciously channeling a little bit of chakra to his eyes. Wondering what it was doing, he stopped the flow and everything went dark, darker than anything he had seen in his entire life. Panicking, he let the chakra flow again and he could see again. I wonder if this would do anything during the day, he thought. The next day he tried to channel chakra to his eyes just like he had been doing the night before. As soon as the chakra reached his eyes, he could see everything much clearer. He could make out details that he had never noticed before. He was looking around, amazed by his surroundings, when he looked out of the window and saw a strange sky blue glint of light in one of the trees just outside the walls of the orphanage. Concentrating on the light, he pushed more chakra into his eyes and suddenly a man in a strange blank mask with just the kanji for Ne, Gen, root on his forehead appeared. Deciding he had seen something he was probably not supposed to see, he let the chakra flow stop and the man disappeared again. Though he didn't yet understand it, he had just found out he could see chakra, and when he channeled enough chakra to his eyes, see through genjutsu. Despite not understanding what had happened, he decided to practice sending chakra to his eyes so he could see that clearly again if he ever needed to. Then he wondered what would happen if he did the same for his ears or nose, only to find that channeling chakra to them amplified his sense of hearing and smell many times over, so he practiced doing that too. Time passed, and soon it was the day before his birthday, and surprisingly the Hokage showed up and took Naruto out for ramen. Ichiraku ramen. Almost as soon as Naruto and the Hokage entered Ichiraku ramen, Naruto found himself swept up in Ayame's arms. She had a very powerful hug, and before long he couldn't breathe. Can't breathe. Let me down, Ayame-ne-chan. Naruto gasped out as he banged on her arms. She immediately put him down with a contrite look on her face. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I was just so excited to see our cutest customer again. Hiruzen just laughed at Naruto's predicament as he sat down at the counter. Tsuki comes up and laughs with him before saying, "It is good to see him treated like a normal child," in a low voice. That it is, the Hokage answered. Before too much longer, Naruto was sitting at the counter with the Hokage waiting for the miso ramen he had ordered. He ate fast like normal, but once again tried to eat like the Hokage, who looked somewhat regal even as he ate his ramen, not spilling even a drop of his broth. He continued to emulate the old man even as he ate his second bowl. When he finished his second bowl, he looked at it mournfully but with a conflicted expression on his face. What's wrong, kid? Tsuki asked when he saw the expression. Anyo, can I have another bowl of Tsuki Oji-san, but a different flavor this time? Don't get me wrong, I love your miso ramen, but I bet everything you make is just as good. Naruto answered quickly. Sure, kid, how about beef ramen this time? That'd be great. That will be up in just a minute. Just let me go in the kitchen and make it for you, Tsuki said as he moved toward the back room. So how is it today, Naruto? The old Hokage asked, breaking through his ramen fixation. It's great, thanks Gigi, Naruto said, and was about to turn back to wait for his ramen when a question popped into his head. Hey Ojii-san, why did you decide to bring me out today instead of tomorrow on my birthday? I'm afraid I've got a council meeting tomorrow that is going to last all afternoon, the Hokage said, and Naruto could have sworn he saw dark clouds forming above his head. I won't likely be able to see you tomorrow, so I decided to bring you out to celebrate your birthday today. What's a council meeting, Ojii-san? Naruto asked. To start with, the council is a group of people that runs Konoha and makes sure it runs smoothly. A council meeting is when the entire council meets to give reports and vote on issues. It isn't fun, but a lot of political issues are discussed during the meetings, so it has to be done, even if they tend to last a long time. That sure doesn't sound like much fun. It isn't, but that is just one aspect of being the Hokage, Hiruzen stated. What is Hokage anyway? I've heard people call you Hokage-sama before, but what does it mean? Naruto asked as his new bowl of ramen was set in front of him. The Hokage is the strongest shinobi in the village, Hiruzen started, but was cut off by Naruto's incredulous outburst. You're the strongest person in the village, Gigi, but how is that possible? You are really old. Ha 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 ha, I needed that. Yes, I'm the strongest person in the village. But that is not all the Hokage is. Like this hat I'm wearing is the symbol of the Hokage is the symbol of the village. He is someone who makes sure the village runs the right way, the commander of all of the other shinobi in the village, and if necessary is willing to put their life on the line to protect the village from danger. However, the Hokage is sometimes forced to make very difficult decisions, meaning that I have to be not only the strongest in body but also in heart and mind. The person who is Hokage is probably the most respected in the village, he explained. So those looks that the village people have when they look at you are respect? Naruto asked curiously. Very perceptive, yes they are, though sometimes there are looks of admiration thrown in as well. Someday I want to earn their respect, have them acknowledge me like they do you, Gigi, and maybe one day I'll take that hat from you, Naruto said with a serious expression. I look forward to that day, Naruto. But don't forget about your ramen, if you don't eat it soon it will become cold and the noodles soggy. Okay Gigi, Naruto said as he turned back to eat his ramen, a thoughtful look on his face. Oh, and Naruto, if you hurry up I'll take you to one of my favorite places in the village before we stop to get you some candy. Hearing that, Naruto decided to stop trying to emulate the Hokage and practically inhaled his ramen before turning back to Tuki. That was just as delicious as the miso ramen, thanks Tuki Oji-san. See you next time Ayame ne-chan. With that, Naruto and the Hokage start to walk away, never hearing the conversation between father and daughter. He is a really nice boy, isn't he, Dad? Yes, he is a great kid. I'm glad you think that. Never let anything people say change your opinion, Tuki said to his daughter. Okay Naruto, climb up on my back. I'm going to use a ninja technique called Shunshin body flicker to get us to my favorite place, Hiruzen told Naruto after they left Ichiraku Ramen as he knelt on the ground. Naruto quickly scrambled up onto the sandame's back, putting his arms lightly around his neck and watching as he made a ram seal before they disappeared. A few seconds later they reappeared at a very high place overlooking the entire village. After scrambling off the Hokage's back and getting to his feet he said, "It is beautiful," with a voice full of awe. Yes it is my boy, yes it is. We are on top of the Hokage monument right now, on Yondaimi's head to be exact. This is what I struggle to protect as Hokage, this village and everyone in it, the Hokage stated with a reverent voice. Really, he's my hero. I want to be just like him. Hiruzen chuckles at that. He couldn't help but think you have no clue how alike you are. They stood there for several minutes just taking in the beauty of Konoha in silence before Hiruzen suddenly picked Naruto up and they disappeared with the drifting leaves. They reappeared right outside the sweet shop where Naruto picked out a bunch of candy before returning to the orphanage. Orphanage. Naruto was not having a good day. After all the fun he had yesterday he was hoping to have another good day, it was his birthday after all. But that didn't happen, the ladies that worked in the orphanage were all really mad at him for some reason today, he didn't do anything wrong but they were still mad. He snuck out of the orphanage early to avoid them but it was almost worse outside. The first few people he saw him gave him looks that were even beyond mad and after he got out of their sight he hid. Making his way to the thick forest in a nearby forest he used his tree climbing ability to climb into one of the biggest trees and hide before summoning Gamakichi. Yo, how's it going Naruto? Not too good Kichi. Yesterday I went and had a great day with Hokage Gigi. Here you go by the way, Naruto said as he held out a bag full of candy. Thanks man, I'll take them if you eat them with me. But what's wrong? Okay. Like I said, yesterday was great and I was hoping today would be just as good, but everyone in the orphanage seemed really mad at me, it was kind of scary. I snuck away to get away from them, but when I got out of the orphanage the looks were even beyond mad. I hid from them too and made it the rest of the way here without letting anyone see me, Naruto said, almost crying. Poor kid, Gamakichi thought. People hate for something that he had no say in and he is so smart that he notices it, even if he doesn't understand what it means. I almost wish he wasn't so smart then he might not notice those looks. Well, I'm not mad at you and I never will be, at least not like that. I'm sure the old man isn't mad either, so don't worry about it too much. Naruto sniffled. Thanks Kichi, I needed to hear that. No problem, what are friends for if not to help you out when you are upset? When Naruto finally cheered up, He and Gamakichi played games like rock paper scissors and tic-tac-toe until it started to get dark. I've got to go now, Kichi. I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto said as he got up and started walking down the tree, stopping only to watch Gamakichi dispel. Naruto carefully snuck back to the orphanage, not letting anyone see him. When he reached the orphanage, he was quickly spotted by the matron. She ran over and grabbed him by the ear, pulling him painfully as she screamed at him. Where were you, you ungrateful little brat? I should tan your hide for this. What were you thinking sneaking out of the orphanage? Just for this you are going to your room with no food. If I ever find you doing it again, it will be 2 days, do you understand? Tears started leaking from Naruto's eyes. But I didn't do anything wrong. What did you say? Never mind, I don't want to know, she said as she threw him into his room and locked his door. Naruto lay on his bed, crying into his pillow, wondering what he had done to deserve such treatment. Eventually he fell asleep and woke up in his mindscape. Mindscape. Naru-chan, Kushina said to him kindly, a friendly voice being the balm he really needed. He ran into her arms crying. Naru-chan, what's wrong? She asked as she saw his face. The matron was being mean again. You would think people would be nice to me on my birthday like they are to the other kids, but they never are. It's okay, Naru-chan. No matter what happens, I will always love you, never doubt that. If you ever need help, just come to me and I'll do whatever I can. Naruto looked up at her, tears finally stopping. Gamakichi said almost the same thing when I talked to him. Then he is a good friend. Yeah, he is. They sat there for a long time with Kushina just holding Naruto in a comforting hug on her lap. Well, Naru-chan, do you want to work on the Uzumaki sealing method? I'll tell you what makes it so special. Really? What is it? Naruto asked, tears forgotten and excitement back in his voice. Remember when you read that scroll on jutsu theory? It said that if someone becomes really good with a particular jutsu, it is possible to perform with fewer hand seals, or if you become really good with none. Yeah, it said something about how a shinobi memorizes how to mold the chakra after doing the jutsu enough times, making it possible to perform the technique with fewer hand seals. Very good, Kushina said while thinking that is even better than I could explain it. So, to truly master the Uzumaki sealing method, the first step is to be able to use the jutsu with no hand seals. A true master can just slam their hand on the ground while molding their chakra and the seal is deployed. That is how it is possible to use in battle. So the next step for you would take off the first hand seal and perform the jutsu. When you get good enough to use it as well with only 3 hand seals as you can with 4, you take another hand seal off and perform it with 2, then when you can do it with no hand seals you have mastered the jutsu. That is awesome, Datbeo. Naruto said before pausing, deep in thought. But Ka-chan, do I have to use my hands? What do you mean, Naru-chan? Well, you know how I've been working on the tree walking exercise. Yes. Well, I'm really good at it now and I kind of got bored. So I did some cool stuff like sitting and laying on the wall in different ways. I even tried walking up the wall with my hands. The chakra part wasn't that hard, but I need to be stronger to do it well. But I was thinking about how you said I would eventually be able to mold the chakra through my hands with no hand seals, but instead of my hands could I do it through my feet? You know, I'm not sure. How about this, you master doing it through your hands first, then you can try through your feet. But that is a really good idea. If it works you could deploy seals by just walking. Thinking about it, you could even deploy trap seals by just thinking about it as you tree hop. Okay Ka-chan, I'm going to try it with 3 seals now, Naruto said before making the last 3 seals in the series and slamming his hands on the ground. The jutsu still worked, but the kanji that appeared was so blurry he could barely make it out, quite a bit worse than his first attempt with the full sequence, but it did work, so with enough practice he would perfect this too. Naruto was just about to start again when he felt himself start to fade. In a bit of a panic he ran to Kushina and asked, Ka-chan, I feel like I'm fading, what is going on? Someone is probably trying to wake you up in the real world. Meditate and concentrate on leaving your mindscape, Kushina said calmly to reassure Naruto. Orphanage. The matron was mad, almost beyond belief. That demon had managed to sneak out, on today of all days, and it had the gall to ask what he had done wrong when it showed back up. She had sent it to its room without food as punishment, but when she went to check it was still there, it was just sleeping peacefully, without a care in the world. To make it even worse, when it turned over it had a fox-like grin on its face. She was practically seeing red when she started kicking it awake. After the third kick it hopped up and she grabbed it by the hair and dragged him out of the orphanage and threw it in the street. A demon like you is no longer welcome here, she spat, slamming the gate in its face. In front of the orphanage gate. Naruto was found sitting on his butt in front of the gate, his ribs still aching where he figured the matron kicked him. He didn't know what to do or why the matron was so angry. Why did she call me a demon anyway? And what should I do? He thought to himself. Then he remembered what the old Hokage said the day before about having a long council meeting. He realized that the Hokage would probably still be there, so he took off running toward what he had been told was the Hokage Tower. As he ran toward the tower he ran into someone who stepped right in front of him. The man had a big belly and a really bad and sharp smell hovering around him. Sorry, the man said until he got a good look at Naruto, then his face transformed. It's the demon brat. From behind the man he heard a couple more voices. The demon. Get him, he can finally get what he deserves. When he bumped into the man he was scared, but upon hearing those voices he just started running, shouts following. He could hear more and more people running after him and it just drove him to run faster. He ran and ran, becoming more tired by the second, wondering when the people would stop chasing him. Then his luck finally ran out as he ran into an alley only to find it was a dead end. By this point he was too scared to think anything and he completely forgot could just run up the wall. Turning around he looked into the faces of the mob and he finally understood what hatred looked like. He swore that if he got out of this alive he would never have a look like that on his face. Finally having enough, the strong-smelling man started running toward him with a broken bottle raised. Hokage Office. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Kami no Shinobi god of shinobi, the professor, and the Sandaime Hokage had just sat down in his office after a long and tiring council meeting when his door slammed open. Immediately put on guard he looked up and saw Hatake Kakashi aka the Anbu Inu. What is the matter, Inu? I thought you were supposed to be guarding Naruto. That is just Hokage-sama. I sent the rest of my team to scope out the orphanage a little while ago, but when I went to check on Naruto he wasn't there and I couldn't sense his presence anywhere in the orphanage. I came here as quickly as I could. Inu spat out quickly. Damn, the Hokage said as he got up and immediately went to a shelf where a crystal ball was resting. Taking down the orb, he focused chakra on it and pictured Naruto. He continued as soon as he saw what was in the orb. Inu, Weasel, come with me, hurry, we don't have much time. Sir, both Inu and a weasel-masked Anbu said as he appeared. Dead End Alley. Just as the bottle was about to hit him the man holding it flew backward. In his place the old Hokage stood. The Hokage turned around and picked Naruto up in a hug before flaring his killing intent at the small mob, causing instant silence. What do you fools think you were doing? He shouted into the silence. The drunken man stood up and spoke, not thinking or realizing his life was on the line. We were just doing for the lil demon wash should have been done when he was born. And with that slurred speech he had signed his death warrant, and the cheer from the rest of the crowd they had followed suit. Weasel. Knock them all out and take them to Ibiki. Make sure they get the original punishment, the Hokage said in a very commanding voice. Sir, The masked man with black hair hanging down his back in a ponytail, now identified as Weasel, said before making several hand seals. Every person in the crowd suddenly collapsed. Then he made a strange hand seal and there were 7 of him. They each picked up 2 people and disappeared with 14 out of the 26 people lying unconscious, leaving behind raven feathers that disappeared when they touched the ground. A few seconds later 5 of him reappeared and took the rest of the people. Who is Gigi? Naruto suddenly surprised the Hokage, who thought he had fallen asleep when Itachi used his genjutsu. Turning to look Naruto in the eyes, he gasped. Having never looked into Naruto's eyes the night before, he had never seen them when they were slitted. He is one of the Anbu that work directly under me. You can tell they are Anbu by the masks they wear. But how are you still awake, Naruto? What do you mean, Gigi? Well, Weasel just used a genjutsu that should have put you to sleep like all of those people. What's genjutsu? Naruto asked, curious how it could have put him to sleep. It is a ninja art that affects the mind. It can do things like put people to sleep, make you see things that are not there, or make you not see things that are there, among other things. You mean like that Anbu guy that was in the tree outside the orphanage? When I normally looked at the tree I didn't see anything, but when I really concentrated I saw some blue light, and when I looked even closer there was a guy with a mask in it. It was weird though, it didn't have cool designs, it was blank white except for the kanji, "ne," on the forehead. Naruto said, immediately feeling the temperature drop around him. It suddenly went back to normal when he started shivering. Yes, that could be a genjutsu too. But he wasn't an Anbu. If you see another one of them tell me, okay? Sure, Gigi. Now Naruto, tell me why you weren't in the orphanage, the professor said in a serious voice. The matron kicked me out and said to never come back, she said. A demon like you is no longer welcome here, then slammed the gate in my face. Why would she do that? I don't know. She and the other ladies were all looking at me with eyes that were beyond angry this morning, so I snuck out and climbed one of the big trees in the park, Naruto said, remembering to keep Gamakichi and his ability to use chakra a secret. When I went back to the orphanage she swooped down on me and grabbed me by the hair. She dragged me back to my room and said I had to stay there and I couldn't have dinner. I cried into my pillow for a few minutes before I fell asleep. I woke up when she started kicking me in the ribs, and then she dragged me out of the orphanage and threw me on the street and slammed the gate in my face. The Hokage's scowl deepened even further. Then what happened? I bumped into that bad-smelling man and he called me a demon brat. A couple other people heard him and started shouting. They were scary and I started running, and as I ran more people started chasing me. I just ran until I found myself here and then you arrived. Thank you for telling that to me, Naruto. Would you like to stay with me for a couple of days, at least until I find somewhere for you to live? The old Hokage asked. That would be great, Gigi. Naruto said excitedly. But how did that guy turn into so many people and how did he disappear? Was it a shunshin like you used? Can I learn that too? Yes, Weasel used a shunshin like I did yesterday. To make the copies himself he used a technique called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. And if you want to learn those techniques you have to become a shinobi, the kindly old man said. If I become a shinobi, would I be able to protect myself from people like them? Naruto asked as he turned to where the mob had been, then back to the Hokage. Of course you would. No normal civilian like those people can defeat a shinobi. In that case, can you teach me to be a shinobi, Gigi? No, I can't, Hiruzen said, but quickly continued when he saw Naruto's downcast face. But I can enter you in the Ninja Academy starting the semester after you turn 6, how about that? Yada, that would be awesome, but what would I do until then? Well, after I get you an apartment, you could start training your body. If you do that you will be ahead when you start at the academy. Okay, but how would I train my body? Naruto asked while thinking. I know I will be stronger than most people my age, but I don't think I should increase the gravity seal beyond the increases it already makes. Maybe I could use some of the exercises from A Guide to Physical Development Necessary for Youthful Taijutsu, which has good advice, despite the weird name. And hopefully Gigi will give me an excuse to know about them in the first place so I can start doing them without drawing attention. Well, some of the common exercises include running long distances to build endurance and strength in your legs, push-ups and pull-ups to build upper body strength, sit-ups to build abdominal strength, and squats to build leg strength. Those are just some of the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe you could learn some more at the library. If you do that, you could also look for some type of taijutsu to use to protect yourself, the Hokage said, taking his question seriously. Well, enough of that for now. How about you stay in my office tonight and tomorrow we'll find an apartment for you. Naruto's face stretched into his trademark foxy grin until he started yawning. Okay, Gigi. Hiruzen turned to the remaining Anbu, this one with gravity-defying silver hair. Inu, you can go call off your team and join me in my office. Naruto will be staying there tonight. Yes sir, the dog-masked Anbu said and disappeared. Hold on tight Naruto. We are about to move very fast, Hiruzen told the blonde child, and as if to take a page out of the ANBU's book they disappeared in a puff of smoke. Hokage's office. After arriving at his office, Hiruzen put Naruto on the couch and he immediately went to sleep. Hiruzen sat in his chair thinking about the night's events, wondering what he should do. After sitting like that for nearly half an hour he makes up his mind. Inu. Yes sir, the dog masked and said as he appeared in front of his leader. First thing tomorrow I want you to go and find an apartment that Naruto can live in. Make sure it is neither too expensive nor too run down. I will arrange for the rent to be covered. You might want to look in one of Jiraiya's buildings, you know he won't refuse to have Naruto live there. Yes sir, he said before fading from view. Mindscape. Running up to his mother again, he threw himself in her arms again, crying. Naru-chan, what's wrong? She asked gently as she ran her fingers through his hair. After calming down he told him what had happened since he left his mindscape. Just like with the old Hokage, he felt himself go cold, but he could also tell that whatever it wasn't aimed at him. Ka-chan, why did it seem like so much time passed when I was here last time, when only a little over an hour passed in the real world? Naruto asked to distract her. What do you mean, Naru-chan? Well, we talked for a long time, then I worked on the seal jutsu for about 6 hours, but when I woke it had been less than 2 hours in the real world. I could tell because it wasn't dark enough for my eyes to activate. I'm not sure, but maybe, you might be able to control how quickly time passes in here, like the Tsukiyomi, Moon Reader, of the Uchiha clan, where they draw you into their mindscape and they can keep you for 3 days while only taking a few seconds in the real world, she said, drifting off until she finally registered everything he said. Wait, what do you mean? Your eyes activate? Well, I've always been able to see at night like it was day. But a few days ago when I was sticking to the wall in my room I noticed some chakra was trickling to my eyes, Naruto explained. When I stopped it, everything went darker than I had ever seen before. I lost concentration and fell back onto the floor, and suddenly I could see again. So I tried channeling chakra to my eyes again the next day and everything became really clear and I could see things I had never noticed before. I think I could even see chakra through genjutsu. Show me. So Naruto did as Kushina asked and channeled chakra to his eyes. His blue eyes stayed the same except the pupils became slits. That is pretty cool. I wish I could have done that. What do you mean, Ka-chan? Naruto asked curiously. Next time you are in front of a mirror, activate them and look for yourself. Okay, I will, Naruto said before his expression turned serious. Ka-chan, could you teach me to be a shinobi? Of course, but why the sudden request? Well, Gigi said that I can join the academy after I turn 6. I want to be strong and protect both myself and anyone I care about like him, and maybe one day become Hokage too. Ha 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 ha. You sound just like I did. My dream was always to become the first female Hokage. I will teach you, but there is one thing you must remember. What is that? Naruto asked, still serious. One of the most important things for a shinobi is deception, Kushina said, just as seriously. Why? Think of it like this, if there were two people that were equally as strong but one always hid their strength. What would the second person do? The second person probably wouldn't take the first seriously. Exactly, the second person would underestimate the first and most likely lose, possibly even die depending on the situation. My point is that I will teach you, but you should hide your abilities. It will make it much more likely that you can win and survive. It is especially important for you, Kushina finished. Why is that? Why is it important for me? Naruto asked, catching his mother's slip. I can't tell you right now, but I promise I will as soon as your father wakes up. Okay, Naruto answered dejectedly. Since we are going to be training, what should I do in the real world? For now, how about you start with that old monkey suggested. Luckily you can learn taijutsu here, as muscle memory is a mental capacity, so you don't have to worry about that, but you might want to do what that book on physical exercises suggests so you can use the taijutsu that I teach you effectively. I'll do that, but it should actually be easier now. Kushina tilted her head in confusion. Why is that? Well, Gigi mentioned getting me my own apartment so I won't have to worry about ladies that don't like me stopping me. Naruto smiled brightly. I'll be able to go to the park whenever I want and maybe I can make some friends my own age. Kushina smiled at the happy look on Naruto's face. Okay, until your father wakes up we will split your time here into 3 sections. Learning to make seals, since you are now able to use the Uzumaki sealing method. Practicing the Uzumaki sealing jutsu until you can do it with no hand seals and maybe with your feet, and taijutsu training. You better be prepared because I won't go easy on you. If you are going to do something as dangerous as being a shinobi, I will make sure you are ready for it. So friends, this was episode 1 of this incredible time travel adventure. If you enjoyed it and want episode 2 soon, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also comment down your thoughts. What do you think Sakura should change first to give Naruto and Hinata the happy future they deserve? I'll see you in the next episode.